All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jake. I'm one of the senior admission counselors here at Loyola, and I'm actually a proud School of Ed alum. So not only do I have a little bit of knowledge about the School of Education, I lived through it, and I worked with some of these people back when I was a student way back in the day. Today, I'm joined with Nancy Goldberger, who's one of our assistant deans, Vesna Sajovic, and Tony Rothschild, who are two of our staff members. Before we kind of get deep into our conversation, I do want to turn over to Nancy real quick, just to tell you a little bit more about the School of Education and different things we have coming up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jake, and welcome to all of you. There's a lot of names that start with the letter K, so I want to give a shout out to the letter K today. I'm Nancy Goldberger, Assistant Dean in the School of Education. It's so wonderful that you carved out some time to meet with us today. We're going to talk through some things that we believe will be important for you to know at this point of your process as you're figuring things out. We are thrilled that you are accepted to Loyola School of Ed, class of 2025. How exciting is that? I'll tell you a little bit more down the road about some other sessions that we have coming up that I hope you'll join us for. But you should always, so my name is Nancy Goldberger. If you have questions in the interim that you would like answers to, you can always reach out to me or Tony or Vesna on this call. But thank you for being here today.
Probably unmuted myself. Wonderful, Nancy. Thanks so much. I do want to turn it over to both Vesna and Tony to tell you more about their collective roles. These two wonderful people are going to be with you every step of the way from your freshman year through your senior year. They're going to be great resources for you. I'll start with Tony, who is our advisor for school education students. Tony, feel free to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Rothschild. I am the undergraduate advisor in the School of Education, like Jake said. And my main role is to work with you to meet your academic goals here at Loyola. So that can be very dependent on your major. It can be very individualized to the person. So what I want to hear, in our first session is what you really want out of your education here. So what is your major? What are your goals? And then we can kind of help build an academic plan that works for you going forward. We'll meet every semester to kind of discuss, what you need to take in education, what you need to take for your core, and maybe if you have minors or if you're a secondary person, you will likely have another major. And I can really help you find those supports to really lead you to the academic goals you have. I would say, if you have an idea or something you want to pursue, the earlier you let me know, the better, so that we can really get you on the route to success there. I'm never sure how broad or specific I should be in these, so let me know if you have questions.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tony. And then Vesna Sajovic is our person who is kind of helping you with placement into your schools for your student teaching and a clinical process. Vesna placed me way back in the day. So thank you again, Vesna, for helping with that. Feel free to talk about your role a little bit.
Yes, thank you, Jake. First, thank you, Jake, for organizing this amazing job. It's really nice to come into a meeting and see all the different wheels of Loyola continuing to work together. That is really one of the strengths that makes our program what it is, and a large part of the responsibility I have to the School of Ed and to the university. Some of you may know, being that you're in this meeting and here to ask questions and applied and considering Loyola, our program is very different from all other education programs in that it is completely field-based. Naturally, COVID has had its interruptions with that, and we can talk about what that looked like at first and how we found a really inventive and amazing workaround for every single one of those hurdles along the way. But essentially, like Tony, who supports your academic plan and your work and your projections and your expectations for yourselves over the course of your experience, my job is to make sure you are obtaining those experiences in the field. And so throughout the 4 years of our undergrad program, all of our education classes are taught in a school. We don't actually teach them on campus anymore. So you can think of our program almost like a medical residency where, they send doctors out into hospitals to work. We send future teachers out into classrooms to start working right away. We want our students to get a sense of what teaching is from the very first day so that you can really be 100% sure that that is what you want. It happens rarely because teaching is amazing, but we also want you to know if that is not the thing for you so that you can consider some, what might be your strength. To that end, I work with all of our partners to ensure that nearly 400 undergrads are in a school every semester for 15 weeks. We have to have some really, really incredible partnerships. And a large part of how those partnerships were developed were bringing those schools in when we redeveloped our program for teachers and principals to tell us what they wanted teachers to be able to do. So my job essentially is working with all those teachers and principals to ensure that all of our core sections have a home each semester. The bigger part of that is working with you as juniors and seniors to get you placed for your one-year internship, which will wrap up your program, and then to help guide you through that really amazing, intense, exciting, kind of crazy last year of your program that essentially fully takes you from student to teacher across that spectrum. It's one of the great privileges to be able to serve as that support for our students. The internship at the end of the program is really a very personal experience. It's different for every student, even though you might be in similar schools to your peers. It's one-to-one with a teacher, the mentor that you have, and different things come up, different successes, different things that we need to learn, and it all culminates with me getting to read your name as you walk across the stage at the very end, which is a very exciting moment for me because it really is the fruition of all the hard work that goes into the program and all the different people who have supported that along the way. Loyola really tried to create this program so that it goes full circle, as Jake mentioned. We start with someone like Tony, who helps you understand the possibilities, helps you think through them, helps you make your personal choices and cater your program to the kind of teacher and educator you hope to be. Then we have our amazing faculty and our partners who lead you through all those field experiences. And then finally that internship, but it's not even the last piece. We don't want to just take care of you while you're at Loyola. We really think very deeply about the career placement beyond that. And so a large part of the work that I also do is taking all of those wonderful partners that have supported you while you were in the program and ensuring that they have an opportunity to hire you as soon as you have graduated the program. So a big part of the final semester of the work that I do with our seniors is an in-house career series, which starts with a resume workshop. In just about a week and a half, we're doing our interview workshop, which actually pairs you with working principals to work through common questions. And then finally, we have a private Loyola job fair that is only for our students. So all of that said, we have really tried to cover every possible need, question, want, hope, dream from A to Z in this program. And we hope to be able to answer whatever questions you have today, to encourage you to really consider Loyola for those strengths. As a 3-time alum, I really have nothing bad to say, which is why I'm still here, and just so proud and happy to be part of this family and the institution that is Loyola in Chicago. So welcome everyone, and thanks.
Wonderful, thank you. We're lucky to have you just as you're lucky to have us. So I want to open this time up for questions. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you're going to see the chat feature. If you have any questions for Tony or Vesna about their specific roles or how your time at Loyola is going to be affected by them, feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll get through them. I do have a specific question for both of you though, so we'll start there as students are typing. Tony, we'll start with you. You mentioned that our secondary education students and even some of our middle grade education students will have to take on a second major. Should our students be concerned by that? Do they have to spend extra time at Loyola for that? Can you just kind of explain how that process works?
You should not be concerned about having to take extra time. It's one of our most popular majors and students graduate every year doing it. Your primary major will be secondary education, and depending on what you decide to study, there might be, some things you need for licensure there, and then you complete what's normally about 30 other curricular hours in a subject. So, it's not like you're having to double up in core. It's very manageable, and we work in ways to make it even more manageable. We know which professors you want to know in the departments that you'll be majoring in. So, you know, if you're history, you'll know who works mostly with our secondary history people, or English or science. And we just want to find the way that it's most meeting your interests, but also meeting the goals of the Illinois State Board, so that you can become a licensed teacher. And you have a support team to kind of usher you through that. So it's very manageable. People do it every year. And we'll talk about your own learning style, your own, you know, approach to how you want to take the classes to kind of figure out, you know, the pacing for yourself. So.
Wonderful, thank you, Tony. And for Vesna, I know we kind of talked a little bit about how it's kind of a growing and like almost a lettered approach to how much time you're in a classroom and kind of taking over that classroom. Can you just kind of describe freshman year in classroom experiences and then how it evolves through your senior year?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that's a great question, and hopefully we can share one of our graphics with the students that were here. Maybe Jake can get that out, that really gives you a visual of what that looks like. But your very first semester at Loyola, in the first 3 weeks of school, essentially you will be able to see almost every kind of classroom that there is. The goal of those first 3 weeks is really to help students see what life is like from the teacher's side of the desk, at the early elementary level, at the elementary level, at the middle school level, at the high school level. I have had so much fun being able to teach those courses and meeting our students as they're stepping into their experience. It's the most fun to see all the different kinds of things that can happen. So oftentimes we see students who have a really strong idea of where they want to be in education. I've had students come in and say, everybody in my family has taught high school English, and they end up teaching high school English because they see it, they continue to love it, and they move on. I had one student come to me and said, everybody generationally has taught second grade in my classroom or in my family, and I'm absolutely going to teach second grade, nothing else. I don't even want to think about anything else. So the very first day I had the opportunity to put this student in a second grade classroom, and the poor thing walked out just white as a ghost. It was just like, oh my God, I can't do second grade. And luckily, you know, she found her home in special education. That was really her calling. But those very first experiences allowed her to see what was great and what fit with her and her goals and aspirations as an educator and her personality, and what wasn't. And that's okay, because what we want is to build experiences that allow our students to become stronger and stronger at every step of the program, right? So that very first experience is exposure. We want you to see everything. Lots of journaling, lots of discussion, lots of theories. The very next 5 weeks, so we're still freshman first semester, this is what we're talking about. The next 5 weeks you will spend rotating through Chicago museums and cultural centers, which we also partner with. And the idea of those visits is for you to work with museum staff to understand how educational theory is actually used every single day in practice, and not just in the classroom, but to help you see that theory is not just this thing that we read about in a book over here and then forget about when we want to do these great projects. They actually are the bits and pieces that those projects are built from, right? And so we get to see how that happens in the most creative ways in these museums and cultural institutions around the city. We're also very fortunate that Chicago is just chock full of them. So it's an amazing experience and a great thing for new students, because you have to kind of move around the city right away. You get to do it within your like course section. So you're not doing it by yourself. It's not overwhelming in that way. You're creating relationships with your peers in class and also learning the city and learning your craft all at the same time. So it's really just kind of like this semester long field trip, basically. The last 3 or 4 weeks, we wrap up with like a community investigation. And the whole idea of that first semester is first seeing what teaching is all about in the classroom, then understanding how students interplay in that, their development, how we need to get creative with our instruction by exploring all these museums and things. And then also how the community plays a role in our decision-making as teachers. So actually walking around the community and understanding what are the issues, what are the questions, what are the concerns parents and families have, and how do we as teachers help to support a better home life for students in the ways that we can, so that it enhances their experience in the classroom as well. And understanding that that's really a relationship that should reciprocate itself, right? Parents giving, teachers giving, students seeing that everybody's working together, and then the motivation kind of happens naturally. So that's semester one. Then we move into, semester two, we start to explore a lot around social justice in education. We build on, we'll do teacher interviews, a self-study portrait. Who are you as a teacher? Who do you want to be? What's the road that you take to get from A to B, Semester three, we get our students into policy right away. And so rather than just thinking that you're a teacher who has to enact policy when it's handed down to you, we really want our students to see that as teachers, they are advocates, right? They have a say in policy. They can become activists for their students in that regard. There's a big focus there on English learners and students with diverse needs, so special education students, which is what I think the more common reference is. But it's understanding what are the laws around offering the supports that are necessary to special populations in schools. How do we act? How do we advocate for them? How do we engage families in different ways, whether they have the resources to engage or whether they may be struggling to come by those resources. So it's a really nice sort of fruitful phase one. Those are those first 3 semesters. In the first 3 semesters, another nice part of our program is that all of our students are mixed together in these course sections. So you're not split up by your content area or your interest or your grade level. You are kind of lumped together and mixed up so that you're interacting with students. If you're a secondary student who wants to teach high school, you're going to have elementary candidates in your classes. You're going to have early childhood candidates that are also in the program. You're going to have middle school candidates who are, so that you can really start to see how different teachers think, and even use that later on in your progress to think about how you might interact with colleagues in those different roles. The middle section of our program, which is your semesters 4, 5, and 6, is really where you start to focus on the choice that you've made for yourself in terms of your area of specialization. So you have 3 whole semesters to kind of experience teaching and education before you even have to make a decision about where it is that you really want to focus. Then you have 3 semesters to really focus on that. So it's a lot about planning lessons and planning units and understanding literacy in your content area or grade level, using data so that you can modify instruction. And the way that we really developed those experiences, all of which are taught in schools with teachers kind of guiding the way, or doing this in classrooms with real teachers and real students and real data and tests, is that principals are in a bind right now. They need teachers who know how to do things as soon as they show up. And our response to that was to go and ask those principals what those things were, and then build them into the projects and the experiences that you're having here at Loyola. So that essentially our goal was for our teachers when they graduate, not just to get a job, but within a year or so be able to actually take on leadership positions in their school to advance certain directives or initiatives, to push advocacy forward, to be activists for their community and school. And we've seen that happen year after year at this point. I want to say the biggest part of that has been the fact that within our program, you do get a value added. You kind of get an additional whole program built into the 4 years that you're going to do, and that is an ESL endorsement. The way teaching licenses work is that you choose a program that you want to focus on, so elementary, middle school, high school, whatever it might be, special education, and you get your initial license in that area. And then you are able to add on extra badges, so to speak. So if we think about Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts of you know, a long time ago, you'd get your SASH, which is your initial license, and then you could do different tasks and pass tests and get extra badges. And so ESL, or English as a Second Language, is one of the biggest and most sought after endorsements that administrators want to see on a teacher's resume. We thought if that was the case already, we're going to create a program that allows our students, every single one of them, to obtain that extra piece without taking any extra classes, without spending any extra money, without any extra time or extra projects. It's all woven into the classes that you'll already be taking. To give you a point of comparison, to get your ESL endorsement, once you've graduated, you must take another 6 classes, 18 hours of instruction, which have to be paid for, which you have to go to class for, and you have to do all the work for. So it's a savings and a benefit in so many different ways. To that end, the last year is your internship, right? We do a full year internship, which is very different than what a lot of other institutions might do in terms of student teaching, which often is just one semester. You will go the full year with the same teacher and the same students in the same school. You will have an entire fall semester to do this part-time, get your feet wet, get to know everybody, all the processes and procedures and protocols and teachers and students and families before you even have to jump into full-time student teaching, which essentially, at the end of the day, makes our student teachers a lot more successful during that final semester. And if you think of that final semester as kind of an engaged interview where you're kind of interviewing the entire time, every day, all day, the fact that you're better at it because you've had a semester to practice really speaks to our employment and our career placement rate, which is at like 98%. In comparison to some of our other institutions in the area, which teeter around 85 or 87. And so when we say full circle, we really mean it. We want you to be a well-rounded teacher who can serve their community, not just as a teacher behind the desk or in front of the smart board or whatever the platform is that you're using. This year it was Zoom. Welcome to that, right? But in so many other ways. And I guess the last piece I'll say, just to round that out, is that, you know, even in a time of COVID, where I know yourselves as students, you have been challenged. I have 2 high schoolers, and I've watched what the challenge is from the student side. I have watched the teachers be challenged, knowing what they are challenged with. I have been challenged as a professor, as a human, and dealt with so many new questions. And the real, I guess, high point for Loyola is the fact that we really continued forward without missing a beat. As far as the experiences that our students have had. In the last year, a lot of institutions had a great deal of trouble placing their students in order to continue forward with that final internship year. Our students were all placed 3 months in advance. And thanks to the partnerships that we have with the schools that we work with, there's probably a list of over 70 of them at this point. Every single one of those interns was able to connect with that school platform through the school's email. They were issued IDs and emails. They were able to do, regardless of how the teaching looked, exactly what the teachers were being asked to do. And they have learned so much more than our program could have even offered maybe without COVID, because they've learned to adjust and be flexible and to learn new things on their own, to teach each other new things, to work with their students in ways that weren't always a necessity in real-time classrooms. And to do it really, really well. So we have a class of amazing people coming out of this program, thanks to the effort that the faculty has put in, but also the effort and the accountability that our students have come through the program, understanding that they're going to have to deliver on. It has just been amazing to watch our students teach their mentor teachers about technology and work together, to switch week to week who's going to explore a new gadget or a new program or a new app and to teach it to the other person, or to take it back to their Loyola seminar and do much of the same thing, or even just to support each other. So even COVID couldn't really keep us down. So I am thrilled and just excited to see what this new class coming out has to offer and say about what their experience has been over the last 4 years. But that's enough for me. Hopefully that was enough, Jake. I know it's a big program and there's a lot, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has about some of those details.
No, that was great, Vesna. Thank you. And I just want to touch on a couple of things that you said. First off, that first semester where you said it's just really a semester of field trips. Like, how great is that, everyone? Like, you thought field trips were done like 9th grade. Turns out they continue into 13th grade too. You also mentioned the ESL program. And as someone who went through the program myself, I can tell you how beneficial that is, even to have that student teaching in Chicago public school, where you might have students who are ESL, that you really could use that knowledge right away. Also really beneficial was that it's a year-long internship your senior year. And in a lot of cases, it's with the same students the first semester as the second semester. So things like learning names become that much easier, and you actually build that rapport with your students before you actually take the reins over the classroom. And lastly, Vesna, you are far too humble. The fact that you just nonchalantly said that you placed everyone with 3 months before the deadline, that's amazing. Kind of shows you all how well suited we are to get you prepared for student teaching. And you subtly mentioned that we have a job placement rate of 98%. Like, flaunt that. That's amazing. Now,
98%, y'all. Snaps
there it
all
is.
around.
That's what I was looking for. Now, Tony, I know we had a student ask a question about kind of balancing majors and minors and managing that. Do you mind just kind of sharing a little bit more about that as well?
Sure. Actually, I also had a question about honors, so I'll touch on both of those. First, I'm going to start with honors, just because it's right here in my mind. If you, so the student asked, do you think applying to the honors program would be a good way for me to be more involved in my interests at Loyola? I would say we have many students who do the honors program, and they really seem to, just really like dig in and enjoy it. From what I've seen of the honors program, it's really intellectually engaging in a very interdisciplinary and global way. It's a great way to really tackle, I know there's a lot with core that our students do in honors. I think if you are interested at all, apply. It's a very fulfilling, group to be involved in. And you do have like a capstone, and you have your honors people that kind of guide you through that process. But I definitely think, there's something for everyone in that program if you're at all interested. So definitely go for it. The other question was basically like, are there limits to being an education major in the field setting as far as getting involved in maybe a double major or a minor in other fields? And this person was specifically interested in the arts. And I will say, you have 4 years here. Most of the time, that's what the goal is for most people. I think you really figure out, what do I want to have in those 4 years? What can I fit in those 4 years? What are my priorities? And I think there are ways to make things work for you. So you might not be able to fit 2 majors in, but it's very common, and it's becoming increasingly common with our students of every major to do a minor in the arts, because I think we are having people who want to be teachers, who found a lot of community and a lot of, worth in the expression of the arts for themselves in their school years, and they really want to connect with their students that way. So we have several students now who are doing theater and dance, and I know there are pathways to the visual arts as well. What that looks like, if you want, is you would basically minor in it. You need 18 credit hours in the art of your choice, and then you take a test, and you can get one of those little badges Vesna was talking about, a subsequent endorsement in one of the arts. So we currently have several students who do dance and theater. I know that there is a pathway for visual arts as well, if anyone's interested in pursuing that. but that's definitely doable. Like I said, you might not be able to double major and still stick in the 4 years that you want to, but I think if you want the arts to continue to be a part of your experience, we can figure out a way to do that. There are other subsequent endorsements you can take on, like we in-house in the School of Ed, we have reading, which is, a lot of our elementary candidates really enjoy the reading endorsement. We have the special education endorsement, which I'm seeing just kind of take off with everyone. So whether you are elementary or secondary, if you're early childhood or special ed, you already kind of have that built in. So yeah, there are ways to make that work for you. It's just figuring out your priorities. A lot of you will be taking University 101, which will help you with a 4-year plan. I help transfer students and people who are trying to, figure out what major or what minor they want with their 4-year plan. And we can kind of see, what fits for you. I think there are just ways to figure it out. So
yeah, I would echo what Tony just said, and just draw the attention back to the idea that you have a support system here at Loyola, even just within this meeting, from admissions to oversight and student services supervision with Dean Goldberger, Tony, and myself. You have people who are ready to listen and hear what it is that you want for yourself, to maybe help you discover if you're not sure what that is quite yet. There's definitely time built in for that too. To the question of the arts, I will say Loyola has a really robust arts community, both within Loyola in terms of the programs and opportunities it offers for coursework. But we're also in the middle of Chicago. There's so much going on here that allows that community to grow and thrive. That is another consideration. The way the state licensure is moving, and I'm going to ask Assistant Dean Goldberger to chime in and let us know, but if you were to pursue an endorsement in the arts to get those 18 hours, those endorsements are actually a little bit different than some of the other ones, and they cover grades kindergarten through 12th. Is that correct?
It depends on the endorsement. So
okay, we'll say it depends on the endorsement, but it's really, really nice because you can add it on. And the additional piece to the career point of all of this, some schools just can't hire arts teachers, right? So to have someone come in who is licensed to teach middle school math, but has an endorsement in theater and can run the spring musical is a huge, huge piece of it. Not only for the school, but for yourself as a candidate and as an individual. You're keeping a part of yourself that you want to carry forward with you, even though you're choosing a very specific sort of career path, right? So there's ways to layer those things in. Another consideration, I'll just add this to what Tony has spoken about. Our program also offers an IB certificate, which allows students, our elementary, our middle school, and our secondary graduates to walk out with an IB certificate. IB is a specific curriculum that is focused on sort of global mindedness that has become very popular in large urban centers. So a lot of Chicago public schools have taken on the IB curriculum. But the whole idea behind the IB organization started way back when in the 50s and 60s, when dignitaries were moving around quite a bit and having to uproot their children and their families, and then kids were being left with these big gaps in understanding. So they created a worldwide curriculum and worldwide schools that teach on the same curriculum wherever you might be. All that to say that if you do walk out of Loyola with an IB certificate, you can actually the next day decide to apply for a position to teach in an IB school, whether it is in Beijing or in Paris or in Buenos Aires or anywhere in between, and be qualified to actually be brought in as a beginning teacher for those positions. You do not need to know the language because IB schools teach in English. If you have an additional language capacity, even better. You can contribute to that community in that way. But it's also another piece to that point of like, you have that initial license here, and then there's all these different strands that can come off of it. A lot of them, which can be organized and layered in a way. Tony is our expert. I keep pointing at my screen because she's on that side of it. That's the Zoom thing that I learned. They can be layered and sort of adjusted to fit in the things that you really want to fit in and capitalize on the experiences and opportunities that are available.
Yeah. And one other thing I'll add with that as well is that the School of Education changes with the times. You know, just I want to say last year they added political science and psychology as potential majors for you to study for secondary ed, and you get a history minor with that as well. So, you know, as Vesna was talking about, as Tony was talking about, we're getting our students prepared to move forward with their educational careers, no matter where they want to go. Tony, I had another quick question for you, and we kind of alluded to it a little bit, but students might be familiar that their first and second year, they have academic advisors that kind of help them with that foundation of their major before switching over to career advisor their junior and senior year. You're kind of different than that. Do you kind of want to talk about how your role is different and how it's similar to that of an academic advisor?
Sure. So first I will say that I work daily with first and second year advising. So, you know, if you have a first and second year advisor, chances are I know them and I talk to them, and we can both be helpful as far as like core. I think they're a bit more focused in the College of Arts and Sciences, so they might have more of expertise there, whereas I can help you know, does this class count towards my licensure? Does it count towards my education degree? What are my options for additional endorsements, and how do I pursue them? That's sort of where I come into play for you. And you know, I have students I meet with who just, you know, need to kind of springboard some ideas like, hey, I'm thinking of this and I'm thinking of this as far as education goes, but I'm not sure like where my fit is. In the field of education, I'm the person you probably want to go to for that, because I will know which professors can give you, you know, the insight from, like, I can say this person's the English professor and I think you should contact them, or this person does bilingual. That's another thing we haven't spoken much on yet. So I think if your questions are about education, come to me. If it's about core, I think they're great to talk to. I can be helpful in that way too, but I just would say I'm primarily for, you know, your education needs.
Wonderful. And we actually had another question coming from one of our students, and they were just wondering, and this is more or less for you, Tony, why do secondary education majors need a second major as opposed to elementary education?
Nancy also might be able to answer this, but it's primarily because of the state board's content requirements and the accrediting board's content requirements for those majors. The one thing to think about is, so if you're an elementary school teacher, chances are you will have 30 students who you stay with all day, or maybe you have one other teacher and you switch at some point with them. You're going to need to know about a broad amount of topics. So elementary majors really, you know, they take 3 or 4 sciences, they take a couple maths, they take, you know, things in a lot of different areas to kind of have that broad viewpoint. If you are secondary, you're teaching generally, you know, 9th through 12th grade, and you're usually teaching, you know, several sections of the same subject. So what you need to be able to do is to be really proficient in that subject area. And the state sees that you need what's equivalent to a major's worth of classes to be proficient in that subject area. So really, by the time you get the amount of classes you need for that, you have a major anyway. So that's why we require the second major for secondary, because we want you to be licensed.
Yeah. Nancy, anything you'd like to add to that?
I would just quickly, and everything Vesna and Tony have said is wonderful, and they're great colleagues. We work together quite closely to make sure that your process from day one, which your day one will be August 30th, just so you know, mark your calendars, until you get to where you cross that stage and you have a diploma in one hand and almost very frequently a job in the other. So this is a great thing for you to walk away with. But what also helps to make that possible is that we make sure you're meeting your markers all the way along for your for what the state requires and what the program requires. We're making sure, like, have they met their milestones, did they take their content test if they need one, you know, that you have all those things in. And then after we confer your degree, we go right into the state licensure system and I give you your Illinois license. And so this year, early in May is our commencement, and by the end of June, everybody will have their licenses already. So we try, because you're going to get job offers so quick. That's why they come piling in for you, like, you know, the job fair that Dr. C has and everything else. And they're already clamoring at our door for our students this year, because they know that if you've gone through a Loyola program, you're very, very well qualified, that you have met all the criteria, that you've had, you know, some of your friends who are going to go to other schools, they might end up just being in a classroom for 10 weeks. And that's okay, I guess. But, you know, when I went through teacher ed years ago, that's what I had. But it really did not give me that depth of what it's like to be in a classroom situation and responsible for that length of time. And I think that this is also a reason why our graduates tend to not only get hired right away, but they stay in the field much longer, because you're prepared and you know what to do and how to do it. And then you get reinforced in your school systems, because they're going to recognize your skills and abilities, and they're going to want to keep engaging you there. So that's what I would add to that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nancy. So we still have a little bit of time here, but if you do have questions, I want to make sure that you remember, feel free to put them in the chat. That's gonna be a great place for you to ask those questions. We did have another question come in about licensure. So Nancy, this might be a little bit more for you. How quickly do you get licensure in other states? And does it make the job placement any more difficult?
It really doesn't make it more difficult. So we often get this question from students who come to us from out of state, or we also have students in Illinois who want to go elsewhere. And that's all legitimate. What we want to do is to make sure you are able to go where it is you need to go. We already have licensure reciprocity with a number of states. And if you have a specific state, you know, that you're looking at, I'm happy to check that out for you. But I will say this, licensure is very organic in nature, meaning that it changes frequently. It's never boring or dull. But one thing that not just the state of Illinois, but all of our states are doing is trying to make it much easier for you to go from state to state, because we need really wonderful teachers everywhere. Obviously, we want you to come to Loyola. You know, we can tell you all the wonderful things about our program. It determines fit. And the same thing is true, you know, when it comes time for a job. You have to find the place that fits you. So we will certainly help you do that. On our website right now, if you were to go to luc.edu/education, you'll find on the, I think near the end, it says Illinois or teacher licensure, and you can actually check what the requirements are currently in all the other states with licensure. And so know that could change next week, that could change next year, but as that change, we try to update that at least once a year. But I fill out, I have in front of me right now, when we're done, I have a bunch of these forms that I'll be filling out for fairly recent alums and some not so fairly recent who are applying for states, and I verify what they've done here. I submit that right back, because we don't stop, you know, being support for you when you complete and walk across the stage. I hear from alumni constantly because they're on the move, and we do these things to support you throughout your career. So I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nancy. We had another question come in, and first let me just say that there's no such thing as silly questions. If you want to ask me where I got this tie from, it's from Tie Bar. Any question goes in this meeting. But the question is, like, how do you know where you're going to go on your first day, especially because we're still kind of waiting to see what freshman year is going to look like and kind of how next fall is going to look like. So whoever would like to tackle that one.
I can jump in here, Jake, just very quickly. So kind of COVID circumstances aside, as far as communications around how your first days and your class sessions look, you will hear, at least as far as your education courses are concerned, you will hear directly from your instructors. So instructors will have a roster as long as you're registered for the class. About a week in advance, you should hear from your instructor for your ed course, and they'll let you know, hey, we're meeting here on the first day at this time. I will say that for all of our classes, probably all of our classes, your first meeting for each course will always be on campus. So you will get together in your assigned classroom that will show up in your schedule through the Loyola system that you'll be able to access at any time that you need to. You'll show up to that classroom or wherever your instructor, lets you know that you're meeting. You'll go through the syllabus usually on the first day, talk through the assignments, do kind of that general business, just like most of you have likely always done in the classes that you've had so far. So the first day, maybe even the second one will kind of be used for that setup depending on the class. And then from that point forward, each instructor will have a specific way of communicating that. A lot of times you will get sort of a tentative schedule up front that will tell you where you're supposed to be with who, what time, et cetera, et cetera. But instructors will always have a way to communicate changes to you. They will let you know what those policies are. The syllabi are really specific, but even more important than that, every single instructor that I've ever worked with in the School of Ed has been super communicative. They're always available for questions. They're really quick in terms of the responses and their promptness and getting updates out. We live in a place that has weather. Right now, there's 4 feet of snow on the ground. So that might impact things, but the communication is really open. You will know. And to that end, we also do a new student convocation every year. It happens on the very first Monday evening of the semester, where all of the new students to the School of Ed get together if circumstances allow. We usually set it up as like a dinner, an informal dinner, where you get to sit at a table with some new people and meet them and have conversation. Hopefully, we will have the opportunity to do it. If not, we have found ways to do it regardless that look a little bit different. In terms of COVID, if we're talking about potential restrictions, I can't make any predictions and there are no promises at this point, but I would say the same general rule applies if we happen to be hybrid or maybe even moving into in-person for certain courses, et cetera, et cetera. I know the goal is, because our classes are field-based, to at least be in person so that we can have those interactions, and that goal will remain as such unless, extenuating circumstances become a reality again. But you will always hear from someone, and if you do not, you will always have someone to reach out to. So remember these faces and names here today, and you will be good to go, I promise.
Wonderful.
I want to add one thing to that, is that, in both of my college experience and what I've seen when I kind of tag along, which I have done before in the past, is that, you make friends with your classmates, and your classmates can be a great resource to you. Sometimes we get sick and we miss a day and we need notes, and those are the people we go to. And I have, and each time I have gone along to these school sites, there's a group of, several groups of people who've come together, who've been on the L together or the bus or however they needed, or walked. A lot of our schools are walkable to get to that school site. Really utilize the people you meet in the program. Maybe you meet someone during convocation or the first day of class. Like, your classmates are, you're already networking in a way, but they're also future friends. So just keep in mind, that you all are also a good resource for yourselves. So that's all I've got.
Nancy?
Yeah, just really quick to add on that. I was on the Lakeshore campus about a week and a half ago, and we have some students that are there. They're spaced out. There's like one student in each room. There's circles on the floor everywhere that are a certain distance apart. There's a whole room set up, the Sister Jean multi-purpose room in the Damon Student Center, where we have saliva testing. And so all of our students have been asked, if you're coming to campus, please participate in these safety procedures. And I was so impressed, and I don't know why, because our students are really amazing about this, but everybody was, in their rows and participating. They had a process set up, and 24 hours later, I received the results of my test. And then the next week I went on Water Tower campus, which is where I'm generally located. But it's just another example of how in a challenging situation, as Vesna said, we have no crystal ball. We don't know what the conditions are going to be like, but we're going to be here. And we're going to be doing what we do, which is help our students get the education they want. And, in whatever form that takes, again, to know that you're supported. I know Jake, I was going to mention these at the end, but I just want to say there's 3 more events coming up that I really hope that you are able to make it to. And the next one is March 16th, and we're having 4 of our teaching and learning faculty come to talk to you about like really what's behind their, why they became a person in education, what brought them to Loyola. And as we've been talking about it together as a group, it's very exciting. I think it's the kind of conversation you wish you could have with many of your faculty, but you don't always have the chance. And I think that this will just be very, very good, kind of pull that curtain back and see that person, you know, that's here to teach you how to be a teacher, but there's so much more that brought them there. The other one is April 19th, and that's where we're going to have students from our current programs, 1st year through 4th year, come and do a panel and talk to you. What is it like 1st year? Was it like 1st year remote? What was it like, you know, 2nd year and so forth? That one I think will also be welcome. Again, all of these things are really to help you define fit. Of course, we want you here, but we want you here because it's the right place for you. We want you to come and to be excited about studying with us. We want you to stay and finish, and then we want you to go be an amazing educator. And so if this is the right place for us, we just don't want to miss that opportunity. There's one thing that we just added, and this is pretty cool. I'm going to make sure we get all of our new students invited, but we have our first, in a long time at least, Alumni Panel. And that's going to be on April 22nd. We'll make sure to send you the information to register for that. So we have students that have been out of the school for 1 to 3 years, who've all been in education in some form. Most of them are teachers, but not all of them are, because they're using what they learn in other ways because of opportunities that came up. And I think that all 3 of those sessions that I just mentioned would be valuable to you in some way. So we'll make sure you get that information, and I hope to see you there.
Wonderful. And I just want to quickly touch on a little bit of what everyone just said. First off, Nancy, you spoiled the surprise of the other sessions. I was not invited to that education panel, but it's fine. We'll allow it. Tony mentioned that, you know, you have an amazing group of friends that you build in your cohort. I'm a perfect example of that. 2 of my absolute best friends were in my secondary education history cohort with me. One of them named me the godfather to his dog. So like these connections can't be broken. And then lastly, you know, Vesna did mention the weather. Don't know why she did that. It's typically 72 and sunny in Chicago. I don't know what this freak snowstorm happened,
This
but
is a complete anomaly. Like, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, never snows, never cold. But every time I'm with these amazing School of Ed staff members, I am always just floored by how they handle themselves with professionalism and with their ability to not only be a resource for the university, but also a resource for all of you. So as we wrap this up today, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. But also, I just want to kind of close things off, just ask you all one last question and just kind of talk about why Loyalist School of Education is different. And whoever would like to start.
Okay, so I'll start because I've been here 3 times over as a student. So I guess that's something. One of the things that I found with Loyola is that, and I've said this a couple of times when I was in similar discussion, Loyola seemed to meet me exactly where I needed to be met at any given point. And knowing more about it as a faculty member now, I see the inner workings, right, that allow for that, the relationships between colleagues, faculty, staff, different departments, the work that people are able to do and the wonderful ideas and the effort that is just poured into this place. I've learned a lot about what kind of impact the alumni have, just in working with our own students to come back and support current students. But it really truly is an amazing place. It's like in this pocket that's urban, and then it has so many little cultures that they're their own, but they're not separated because they all come together to contribute to something. But realistically, like each time I came back, I was, you know, asked to do assignments and journals and things like that, but somehow it all pushed me to grow in the way that I needed to grow at that moment. helped me to understand what that direction was a little bit better. And I'll just say it was super amazing along the way. That's what it was. Because I mean, thinking about everything from the opportunities to study abroad, like we have Loyola campuses all over the world that are our own, which means Loyola dorms and Loyola faculty. And I mean, and on top of the satellite programs that are everywhere, and just what you can experience on campus and off campus, and the people you meet. I think all of that speaks and is shouted loud and clear from our alums, which I also am. Working with people to create the experiences that I offer our students currently, and seeing the willingness with which alumni just pour back into these experiences. I mean, our interview networking event where we have principals, we currently have 14 principals signed up to host a table, which means it's going to be like one principal to every 4 or 5 students to do mock questions. Out of the 14, I think 10 of them are alums. And it's not the first time they're coming back. It's like the 9th time they're coming back. And every year that I send that invite out, it's a yes every time. So knowing that that's behind us and just everything that I've experienced here, I would never go play anywhere else. That's why I stayed even after I got my diploma. So we hope to see you all in the fall. I do, at least, because I can't say enough about this place.
Wonderful. Nancy, Tony, anything you'd like to add to that?
I would say that there is this approach that Loyola as the university takes. I think it's Curus Personalis, the whole person. And I would say that I see that actively with both staff and faculty, that, you know, the faculty that you would meet next session. In our school. And I think, you know, especially this past semester when a lot of our students had COVID-19 issues that popped up, really, you know, I really see faculty engaging one-on-one with the student, and like Vesna said, meeting them where they are. Sometimes that means, you know, you want to take on extra challenges, and sometimes that means you need a helping hand. And I have actively seen that happen for our students. And I think I've seen that happen broadly within, you know, I said I work a lot with first and second year advising as well. And I see that there, and I see it with some other partners in the university that I've worked with. I think that is not how I experienced my undergraduate, you know, experience. And I really wish I had, because I think we all, in 4 years, you know, life happens and you're going to need people on your side. And I also think, you know, it's very academically challenging in a good way. And I see how excited our students get when I have one-on-one sessions with them and they're talking to me about the things they want to do and what they've really enjoyed this semester. And I just really like seeing people excited about where they are. And so that's what I think makes Loyola different.
Oh, thanks, Tony. And Nancy, any closing remarks from you?
I'll just say that I think the biggest difference for me from places I've studied that were not Loyola is Loyola has really made me realize through the education that I've received here how I'm to question everything, how I'm to be curious about things. I've learned more about myself, but I've also learned so much more about everybody else. My perspectives have expanded. The things that I've been able to engage in because of the diversity of students and how we engage that as a whole has just been amazing. And it adds so much more than just a book learning. It's really a life learning. So I think that's something that I would say about Loyola.
Awesome. You know, I think between the 4 of us, there's something like 500 different Loyola degrees between the 4 of us. So I think we can all attest to how much we absolutely love this place. We hope that you all consider being a part of it in this upcoming fall semester. As we wrap up, I do want to thank everyone again so much for joining us today, not only to our amazing panelists, Nancy, Vesna, and Tony, but also for all of you for taking time out of your day to come participate with us and ask questions. I do want to mention that if anyone has any questions that we did not get to today, or you have a more personal question you want to ask, in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and put the email for the school education, which is simply education@lec.edu. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to our staff and our resources through that school. But again, thank you all so much. We hope to see you at our upcoming sessions in March and April. But otherwise, you'll have a great rest of your night. Stay warm, and above all else, go Ramblers. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.